Good evening. It's great to be here, and I first of all want to thank you all for your hospitality, especially the pastor and his wife and Travis. Been taking us around everywhere, feeding us, and it's been great. We've really enjoyed being here, and of course to see all the people that we knew and met in Greece, and their loved ones, and new people that we got to meet. So I'm going to share very quickly little spots about my life. As you know, I'm a missionary kid. I grew up in Greece, actually. I'm full bilingual. I actually, as a kid, was bullied, not in school, but at youth group, which is not somewhere you really want to get bullied, especially if you're not getting bullied in school. But as I grew up, I saw all the stuff my parents went through as missionaries, and I really wanted to have a normal job and not be a missionary, but God had other plans, as you'll see. And growing up, really, what happened at some point that really shook me, a friend of mine in school, her name was Anna, she sat in front of me in school. I was supposed to go to a movie theater, and I ended up not going, and I saw that that was God protecting me or something. And what had happened at that movie theater the same time I was supposed to go see a movie was my friend had jumped off of the 6th floor at the movie theater. And as a 16-year-old at the time, I was like, why? Well, what if I went and I said hi, or I saw her, or I smiled, or anything? And I realized the only thing that really could have changed her life was Christ, no matter how good of a person I was or how good of a friend I was. So that started to get me thinking, well, maybe God does want me in ministry. And then 2 years later, when I was 18, the last year of high school, there was 2 more suicides of young guys my age in a 2-block radius of our house. And one of the guys had invited his friends over for a pizza party, and once they left, 10 minutes later, he dove head first off the balcony. And that for me showed me that he wasn't thinking of committing suicide. For someone to dive head first, that means they've lost all hope. So I prayed and I said, God, what do you want me to do with my life? Because I knew I didn't just want to do something, I wanted to do something that he had called me to. And I felt that at that point, God was calling me to do youth work in Greece. And growing up in the Greek church, there were so many gaps in the youth work activity because in Greece, the economical situation, as you've heard, is very bad, and it's still bad. At some point, it was around 40% of unemployment for young people, and the churches are not strong enough economically to even support, or they can barely support their pastors. So youth work is kind of on the back burner in a lot of churches, well, pretty much all the churches in Greece, even though they don't want it to be. So after that, I went to the Greek Bible College in Athens to study Bible, and then I ended up doing an internship at a church in Athens. And while I was there, I joined OM, Operation Mobilization, and I don't know if anyone's heard of Operation Mobilization, but what they try to do is encourage the church and help the church grow, either by sending people into areas that there's a gap, or by economically helping out, or by training people to do stuff. So when you think of Athens, this is kind of the picture you probably have in mind. Well, this is the picture of reality in Athens. This is where I live. And specifically, this is where I live. This little green box that you see at the bottom right behind the white car is my bat cave, is what I call it. The window on the left is a kitchen, the window on the right is my bedroom and living room. And I try not to open that window too much because there's a lot of stray cats and dogs there, and I don't want to wake up one day and be like, uh-oh, I forgot to shut the window and hear a meow from the kitchen or something. And actually, I didn't know this until I saw this picture, but the graffiti on the wall, can you see it? Like right between the arrows, there's something there that says Kalit Tihi, and that means good luck. So that was very encouraging about it. As you can read behind me, all these different simple things that are simple, but one-on-ones in Greece is really what has gotten to young people. You would think a country like Greece that is very centered around people and community and friends and family would have a like big brother mentality, and they really don't. And so what I've been doing actually since I was 15, before I was even with the mission or felt called to do specifically something in youth ministry, I've been going out with younger teenagers and sharing with them, asking them who they are, asking them who they want to be in life, and just sharing with them and letting them talk. And a lot of times you think a missionary is the one that gets up and talks. Well, a lot of these coffee meetings are me talking for 10 minutes and the teenager talking for 2 hours. So a lot of these young people have not been encouraged or even been prayed for. And a lot of what I do is after I'll ask, hey, could I pray for something for you? Or is there something I could help you out with? Or have you heard about Christ? And his answer to your question. So that's a lot of all the things you see around here are the tools that I use in youth ministry. Here's a couple of pictures of just different camps and Grace that I've been involved in different ways. This is the youth center, which I am now leading with another friend of mine. When I first went there, we went from 10 to 12 kids to 35 in the first year. And for me, really, that was God reassuring my calling and where I was at and what I was doing. But I realized that, of course, everyone loves numbers, but we wanted to go deep. We didn't just want to have kids and say, oh, we have all these kids. We didn't have the manpower to go deep with 35 kids. So my prayer at the end of that year was, God, I don't want to just have numbers. I want to be able to go deep with these kids. So we went from 35 to around 20 to 25. And now this year, we've even had conversations where some of the teenagers would turn around and say, so from what we've heard and what we've seen with you guys, you're telling us if we don't really believe in God and give our life over, we're going to hell. And that's like the one you're going. But at the same time, we realize that they're really getting it. So we've also seen great growth in the young people, because these young people are from 3 or 4 different youth groups, and they come to help. And they've also, when they were teenagers, weren't encouraged in their gifts and their callings. And now a lot of this is coming up because we're giving them the space to fail or achieve something. And we just see all these young people grow in a way that you can never imagine because they've never been asked, well, what are your talents or what are your gifts? Just a couple more pictures for you to see at the youth center. It all started with going to the playground during Easter. This is like the platea. That's what we call it in Greece. It's the platea. It's the playground, the main area that everyone meets up at. And we would organize games for a week, just different activities and fun activities for the neighborhood. And then what we would do is we would say, okay, this is the last day that we'll be here, but tomorrow we're going to have at our youth center, we're going to have a lesson on Easter and what Christ did for you. And we'll have a pizza party, and then everyone will sit down and we'll tell them about what Christ did on the cross. And then at the end of that, we'll share, this was our Easter program, but we actually do this every week, and we're here every week. And I've had kids come into the youth center and say, how much does this cost? Or I've had a kid that was a Jehovah Witness come in and he's like, is it okay if I come? I was like, everyone's welcome. So it's been really cool to see so many different things happen that I never expected and how God is using the youth center and the different activities in Athens. Another great thing was this is the teen youth group that I'm also one of the leaders, and it's actually now half of kids are from the church and half of the kids are from the neighborhood. So the youth center is pouring into the teen group. And in closing, the other thing that happened was the VBS. I got a message last year from the pastor at the church I've been working through, and he told me, he said, just to encourage you with the youth center, this was the record year we had in kids that came to VBS, and it was 82 people. And he said there was a lot of people from the neighborhood. This year, I wasn't there unfortunately, but he told me they had 100 kids and 40 of them were from the neighborhood. So the youth center has really been pouring out into the church. And Sfina, which is what the youth center is called, actually means like the doorstop. So what they wanted it to be is the in-between of the church in the community. The thing that could connect the church and the community in ways that sometimes someone doesn't feel that comfortable to first come to the church, but they can come to the youth center and be connected that way.
Thank you, Michael. I kind of feel like Verizon or a T-Mobile representative, before, when you go there, the first thing they ask you, what are you looking for? You're looking for a single plan, a double plan, for you and your wife, or the family plan? Well, I'm here to represent all three. So now I got one, that's one single. I have another single that I'll be sharing with you about in a moment, and then I'll go to the family plan. Hold on one second, there we go. And these single plans, we want to be married and have grandchildren real quick because we're getting older and I want to be able to enjoy them. But this is our family. We've been married now or we've been in Greece now for 21 years. I'll share with you a little bit about our second single, which is Peter. Peter is at our CF headquarters, which is in Warrenton, Missouri. He's 22 years old, still single, but he has a girlfriend, so we don't have a problem there. But he is trying to raise support so that he can get married and bring his grandchildren. But he's kind of the quiet type, unlike Michael and I. So if he were here, he'd be waiting for you to ask him questions, and he'd give you one word answers. But we asked him, what do you want to do? He says, I want to do video editing. Like, what do you really want to do? I want to do video editing. So we praise the Lord that there was an internship at our CF headquarters, and he's done that for 2 years. And now he's working on trying to raise support for his third year. And then after his third year as a full-time missionary, then he can possibly be full-time staff. So he's doing really good. He does a wonderful job. Just to show you what he does, basically it's just to show you right here. So that's what he does. So they'll go up and they'll do the motions on a green screen. Then he'll take the footage and then he'll come up with the idea and then he'll put it together and make a video. So they're doing video songs and Bible verses. So if you get CF materials, this will be something new that has just come on, and this is basically Peter's main job. He's now studying so he can learn how to use some other programs and do even something more creative that CF isn't doing. Our youngest son is 15, Alex. He plays the cajon, which is a little box drum for our church. He's been doing that for the last 6 years. My wife and I have now been married for 30 years. And you have to bring many flowers if you want to be married for 30 years. So just would you like to know, I mean, if you all just, oh, we're almost there, bring some flowers. We went to the country of Greece originally to be involved in the camp ministry. My mother is from the country of Greece. My father's from the former Yugoslavia, the country of the former Yugoslavia, which is basically the southern part, which is now legally called Northern Macedonia. So as a child, I learned both languages in our home, and so that way there's nothing my mom and dad could say that we didn't understand. So they had no secret language. But I went to the country of Greece in 1992 to see where God wanted us to be there. And then I had never heard of Child Evangelism Fellowship until I went there. And so while I was there, I heard about them. And I went to talk to the national director and his wife, and they talked, they told us a little bit about what their ministry is. And they said, we have this 2-acre piece of land that we want to be made into a children's camp. And so right then and there, God says, this is where I want you to be. I called my wife on the phone and says, I know where we're going to be. When God calls you and says, this is what you want to do, I just figured, well, that's what he said. I agreed, and I said, okay, this is where we're going to be. So 5 years later, we went there, and we've been there for 21 years. The camp is in full operation. My wife, she loves doing the arts and crafts. If they had me doing the arts and crafts, we'd have a competition of who does the best stick figures. That's about the extent of it. She's also a wonderful cook, for those of you who've been there. Yes, I know you're holding your heart. I'm holding mine too. And my stomach. You've probably seen some of these pizzas too. This is one of her favorite meals that she makes. She's also very involved in our church's Ladies Fellowship. They used to have a ministry or have like 2 events a year or so. Now she's trying to do something every week or every month with the ladies. And she's also involved in a prayer ministry, and also our food bank. We live in the city of Thessalonica, which, as you would know it in your Bibles, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, but we call it Thessaloniki. That's the proper way of pronouncing it. So if you were to tell a person, oh, have you ever been to Thessaloniki? Oh, good for you. You can speak Greek. I was about to, or at least know how to properly pronounce the name. Athens is easy. Thessaloniki is a little more complicated. So there's around 2 million children in the country of Greece that we're trying to reach. We live in the northern city, which is the second largest, which is a little over 1 million. Down in Athens, where Mike was at, it's about 4 to 5 million, close to 50% of the population. We also work in Thessaloniki and Larissa, working with the Roma Gypsy people, and then also have been down in Athens as well. CF has a threefold purpose. First of all is to evangelize the boys and girls with the gospel. Second is to disciple them in the word of God. And third is to establish them in a local Bible-believing church. The third part is an area that we really don't have much control over. How can we send them to a church that doesn't exist, that's not close to them, or maybe if they went there, they would not be accepted. But for what for us is impossible is possible for God. And I'll show you one of the things at the end of our presentation on how He did that. The fourth thing I add is teaching. I don't actually do the teaching of the teachers, but I do more of on-the-job training. So they come with us, and then they would go around to the different clubs that we teach, and we give them the opportunity to sing and to teach. Many of you have seen pictures like this on your television recently, especially in Syria. This is what the children and the adults are going through there. So many people say, well, why don't they just go back to their country? Imagine if this was your country. And these are actual pictures of Syria. Then they're so desperate to get out of there, to have a better life. They would usually go over to Turkey, and from Turkey they would get in these overcrowded boats, which people are getting money for them. And then many of them are flipping over because of the weather changing, and some of them are dying. Some children, some adults as well. So it was really a sad scenario. We could see this on a regular basis in the country of Greece. Actually, Michael and Peter were in Leros, in one of the islands there, and they worked for 4 months with Samaritan's Purse to help these people as they were coming in. And so after they came onto one of the islands, then they were transferred to Athens, and from there usually they would take a bus. They would go up north, they would come to Thessaloniki, and from Thessaloniki they would continue towards the border. Sometimes they would even walk, and they have these big old caravans, as you're familiar with seeing even here on television coming across through Mexico. Well, that same thing was going on in Greece. And we were going to the borders to help them, and then the borders were closed. We were giving out aid for them sometimes, and then the borders were closed, and so they could no longer go over. So then they began to set up tents, close down the train station there right at the border, and then the fence was built across, and then they were no longer allowed to go across and to go into Europe, because they didn't want to stay in Greece. Greece was just a stepping stone to go to Germany or to England or to France or Norway or Sweden. But now that the road is closed, they had to find a different way. And also the Greek government had to find a different way as well to deal with them. So they began to make the different refugee camps. And so now there's refugee camps all throughout the country, down in Athens, in the central part, and primarily up in the Thessaloniki area as well. So it's a possibility that you go from a tent to one of these type of containers. There's 2 rooms. They're just basically simple empty rooms, maybe one cabinet, and then in the middle there's a small kitchenette and a bathroom and shower. If you're lucky, you go there, otherwise you go to the shared showers and bathrooms further down. And then some of them would go into these corrugated type buildings. These are the ones that Michael and Peter were actually setting up. In Syria, this is what it looked like before. This is what it looked like after. And one of the guys that came from Syria, his name is Hamoudi. Hamoudi was just a sweet young man. As he came across, he was sick. It was him and his cousin was married. She was 9 months pregnant. Our church took them in, and we housed them, put them in an apartment until she gave birth, and then took care of them for many months after that. And basically had them for about a year. They went down to Athens and then went over to Bordeaux, France. And then Hamoudi stayed with us for 2.5 years in our church. And he had many problems. He told us of many of his family members that had died, other ones that were fearful of their lives, and then he himself had physical problems as well. So we were able to be with him there in the hospital, one of the Christian hospitals there in Thessaloniki. Praise the Lord, we're able to take care of him and help him through his sickness. We have other missionaries now coming over from Egypt to work with these refugees, and now we partnered with them to bring them up to our campsite and have opportunities for them to enjoy it. If you look at the lady with the blue headdress, she was one of the Arab ladies there. She says, "This is the best day of my life. There's no wars, there's no fighting. We're not in a camp having fear, and to watch my husband out there playing with his kids is the best day of my life." So this is continuing to go on. We also work with a care center, which is a ministry in the inner city of Thessaloniki that has begun to work with the refugees. I went there not knowing what to do. I figured I didn't know how to speak the language. How am I going to teach these kids? I didn't want to just hand out clothing or food or something. So God didn't say what to do. He just says, go. So I went, opened the door, saw the kids hanging out. I says, do you all want to learn English? Yeah. I never taught English before, but I said, okay. So I always wanted to, but I thought I'd have to go for the training, but I guess this was on-the-job training for me. That's what I do with the others, and that's what I guess God does to me. And so this was our largest class that we had. I had these booklets that a missionary friend of mine had given me. 5 booklets: the birth of Christ, death, burial, and resurrection, 3 books on the parables. And they were also in 3 languages, 2 Kurdish languages and 1 in Arabic. So if they knew how to read their language, they could read it in their own language, and then we would study the English, and I could share Christ with them through that. There was this one family. They had 3 girls and a little boy. I said, "Where do you live?" They said, "We live over on Langadal." Langadal was a street close by. I said, "Okay, I'll take you home." They said, No. I talked to the parents, got them in the car, took them down Langadal. Langadal, the father goes, Langadal. I went, okay, go down a little further. Langadal. A little further. Langadal. At the end of the city. Langadal. So I'm out of the city. Langadal. I'm like, oh, where am I going? And then I realized it wasn't Langadal the street, it was Langadal the village, which is outside the city. About another 20 minutes. So once you get there, and I let them out, and they were all happy. They're, oh, no, you can't leave. You got to come upstairs. You got to drink at least 2 glasses of tea, and then you got to sit down. You got to have rice and whatever else they feed you. And so this continued on a regular basis. It was wonderful because then they'd say, "Hey, can you put in that CD?" I had Christian music on, so the girls were learning English through the Christian CD. They loved it, and we had a wonderful time. And I began to learn their language, because I felt like the best way to reach them is to learn their language. And so that they see that it's not just you trying to teach them, but you wanting to learn from them and learn their culture. Linda baked cakes for them for their birthdays. We had them over our house. One time I took Joe Tiara and the kids out to play ball, and then afterwards left his wife with my wife, and they couldn't speak at all. But I went back, and they were all happy. It's like we couldn't speak a word, but we communicated just fine. Eventually they moved to Switzerland, and then my mom came last summer. We were able to go to Switzerland because our CF European headquarters was closing down, and we were able to connect them with a Christian couple there. So they're doing the follow-up. So sometimes you don't see all the fruit, and it takes, you just pass it down to the next person. But sometimes you actually do. This is a young man, Ziad. Ziad came from Lebanon, and we were able to share with him, and another missionary did. He accepted Christ, and we were able to baptize him this past summer there in Thessaloniki. One of our main ministries that we've been involved in for the last 17 years is the Gypsy ministry. Please don't cry, please don't cry. She's going to look at all those kids, and she's going to say, I know those kids. And this was one of the first days that they went to school. They had been promising for years. We finally were able to get them into the school system. And we go throughout the country and to different areas and reach the Roma Gypsy children. This was down in Athens. They even invited us down there to come and to help them to build up the work. We took some of the songs that we had in Greek, and we actually translated them into the Roma language, so that whenever they sang about Jesus, they could actually sing it in their own language using the Greek lettering. This is one of the pictures at our camp. They're always asking, when are we going to be able to go to camp? When are we going to be able to go to camp? So they always wanted to come back to our campsites and to enjoy hearing about God there. So my shirt basically tells it all. It says, love God and love people. And we need to love whoever God leads us to. It may be a Vietnamese group or family down the street from you, or someone from Mexico or someone from Bolivia or wherever. We need to see who God wants us to reach, and then we need to love on them, just as God loves on us. I want to close, getting towards the end here. This is a picture of the kids years and years and years ago. You see the guy with his arm out, the girl behind him, now is his wife. The other guy with his fingers out like this, that's Mikey's. The one just below the guy with his arm out, that's his wife. So here I am teaching these kids, and then later on I find out that they become, they get married. But then they grow up, and then they become part of the church. So Orestes, in the gray and the black there, the one that had his arm out like this, is now the presbyter of this local church. And then the guy in the red is Mikey. He plays, they both play musical instruments, sing. On their music team, they had 2 CDs they put out in the Roman language and in Greek. And now I'm reaching their children. And I used to take them to go out to reach the other gypsies in the other communities, and then now they go out on their own. They get 3 or 4 guys together, they go away for 2 or 3 days and begin and evangelize. And so now, since that time, at some of the same places that we've had good news clubs, 4 gypsy churches have been planted. So we praise the Lord for that. It says, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white, are ready to harvest. I want a quick story I want to tell you. I went down to Florida when I was at Liberty for spring break one time, and I saw the sign for fresh oranges. So I pull over and I go there and I look at the oranges and they're green. I'm like, oh, okay, this guy, he picked them a little bit early. So I go down a little bit further, I stop at the next sign and I look and they're green again. So I go down a little bit further, oh, there's another one. So, this one's definitely, oranges are orange, that's where they're supposed to be, because that's why they call them oranges. So I go there and then I look at the oranges and they're green. I'm like, what's going on here? I mean, you people don't know when to pick oranges or what? And then, but this guy was smart. He had them cut open. He says, here, try. And I tried it. It was the most juicy, tastiest orange I've ever tried. And then I thought, that's just like our children. Many times we think, oh, just wait till they grow up, and then we'll share Jesus with them. Then they'll accept the Lord, and then they'll follow God. But you need to reach them when they're young. When you think that they're green, they're not green. That's when they're listening. That's when they're wanting to hear about God. And then that's because if you leave that orange on the tree too long, it grows and it grows and it grows. But then you got all this peel that's totally a waste. And then when you take the orange and you go to eat it, it's all dried up. There's no desire for God because all that sin has now encapsulated them and has just strangled the juice out of them. And so we need to, and that's a little rough, but you understand what I'm trying to say. Pastor, I don't recommend you say it like that. You can change it around though. I'll let you have it, but you got to change it around. But you understand. So we appreciate your prayers for us and our ministry. In closing, I just want to share with you, we are not part of the IMB, neither one of the 3 of us. We're all having to raise our own personal support. This is our family. When we first went to the country of Greece, we were 100%. But then over time, the people who that chose to support us back then have begun to die off. Little by little, every time we're there, there's 2 or 3 or more that pass away. So we're trying to find new supporters for our family ministry. Peter's, like I mentioned earlier, trying to raise a one-time support to be a missionary for 1 year, and then hopefully be fully supported the following year through CEF. And Michael is trying to get married and have grandchildren for his mother. And his mother too, but as long as it's a girl, I'm happy. I'll spoil her to death. First one out wins. So between her and Peter, I'll let them know. I mean, I don't care. You have boys, they may not get spoiled as much as the little girl. So I had 3 boys looking for a girl. So, Pastor, appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike and Michael. It's always great to have missionaries come in from different parts of the world and remind us that God is busy working all around the world in so many different ways with so many different ministries. And we have enjoyed Mike and Michael and hope to enjoy them for many more years. That was a very exciting time for us back in 2012 to take a big group over to Thessaloniki, Greece. One of the things that was really neat about that trip is we got to go to Philippi and actually see the agora where Paul had taught. And Darlene was baptized maybe close to perhaps where Lydia was baptized that we read about in the book of Acts. I will tell you that that water was very cold because I was the one baptized there. But it was a very exciting trip, and it's a great place. And thank you so much, Mike and Michael, for coming and bringing us up to date. I'm going to ask them to stand in the back, and many of you are familiar with this routine. When we have our Gideons come, you can give a one-time offering to them on your way out if God is leading you to do that. So they will be back there in the foyer to receive that from you. But perhaps the Lord is speaking to your heart about doing something more. They have materials in the foyer, and if you're interested in supporting them on a more regular basis, you can pick those materials up and find out how to do that. Thanks again, guys. Let's pray, and you hang around in fellowship. You don't have to leave right away. We'll sing a song, but you're dismissed to spend some time with one another. Let's pray together.